Yes, ladies and gentlemen, here you have it again, the Track Limits podcast team here for yet another episode. We've got Phil in the booth, we've got myself, Dominic, we've got two other very special guests here with us tonight, another part of the family, so we're going to introduce them in a sec and then get straight to some content. We've got John and we've got Daval. So, ladies and gentlemen, I'll hand you over to Phil in 1 second. Take it away, Phil.
I'd just like to say it's Daval's birthday.
It's Daval's birthday. Woo!
Happy birthday, Daval.
Thank you.
He is 1/4 of a century old today.
I feel way past my soul by now.
Yeah, you are. I think what we're going to do is then, as well, we've got somebody who we've not introduced yet. Obviously, we did our preview episode with us three. John.
This is where we put you on the spot.
This is where you can sell yourself.
Right, invest in me, please. All your money, just send it straight to my bank account. A sort code, account number, or in the chat. I don't know. What do you want to know about me?
Why do you like motorsport, John?
Ever since I was a little boy, and I was touched by no. No, I mean I did in school.
Track limits.
I didn't do much in school.
Better.
Sorry, sir.
So I decided to join my school's racing team. It's a small team, but we race in the Formula 24 and 24 Plus Championship. Back then it was more so the 24. So for those who don't know, Formula 24 is an fully electric racing category aimed at school children, students, postgraduates, but only up until like age 25. So yeah, Phil, you can be involved if you wanted.
Not long left.
Not me. No, I can't do it anymore.
You're out of it. No, actually, to be fair, you can be involved as a team, but not as a driver, technically. So you could still jump in it. No, so fully electric. Everyone runs a homologated battery pair and motor, which is actually out of a washing machine, I think.
I'm not going to say it.
Phil, is lovely to remind me. But yeah, got involved when I was young and I gradually increased my involvement within the team until I decided that I wanted to build my own. So yeah, built my own one for A-level coursework, set up my own racing team with a close friend, and we raced that car for 2 years. We lovingly called it Bluebird because it reminded us of the blue Landspeed record car. It was in a beautiful blue and orange Golf livery with off-centered orange racing stripes, because I spent so long trying to figure out what to do with it. It kept me up at night. Please do feel sorry for me. And once we figured out what we were doing and actually realised how to build a car, we decided to build it better and made another one called Firebird, which is
red.
Well, it's red, yes.
Makes sense with the old fire.
Blue and orange, and now we're on red and orange. It's quite a development, and we're currently developing the next car as well, which will be a new Firebird because we like the red. It's a nice red.
Firebird V2.
Come out from the ashes.
No, it's just going to be subtly.
Call it Phoenix.
We're going to subtly replace the old Firebird with the new Firebird so we can keep our numbers. But it's technically the same car because all the mechanicals will be the same. But yeah, so run my own racing team, quite small, private entrant in quite a small series. But both cars we have, both Bluebird and Firebird, have won the F24 Plus Championship, which is not exactly a small feat. We've beaten out the likes of JLR graduates, Renishaw graduates, a Polish university, which I won't dare try and say the name of, and a Portuguese university, which is... No, won't try that either. I'll butcher it. But yeah, it's a small team. It's me and my mate, and then we have a small Johnny called...
A small Johnny?
A small Johnny. His name's John. His name's Johnny. He drives it. And he's driven the blue one for 3 years. Has this gone to shambles?
You said small. You were going so well. You said small Johnny.
Oh my goodness.
We've got a small Johnny.
We've broken the valve. Is it still recording? It's still recording. I'm keeping all this. I am keeping all this. I need to add another track now.
We've got a small Johnny.
Right, yeah. So, okay, from the top. Yeah, so it's a small team. It's me, a close friend, and our small driver who's currently in sixth form. And it's just the three of us. We have a bit of help from one of our sponsors with the electrical side of it because, let's face it, we're inept. But otherwise, it's just the three of us, a small team.
It's very impressive.
Very impressive.
To see off the likes of Jaguar Land Rover and their team of graduates. Sorry. I'm actually being nice here. It's very impressive.
Thank you.
How many championships have you won then, John? You're a 3-time champion, right?
Yeah, so 3-time international champion, twice with the privateer team that I run, and once when I was with the school team, building up into more of a senior position. So this was when I was year 11 we won the championship. That's what actually inspired me to go out and do it on our own, and it's been a success ever since.
Oh, what do you do now?
Currently a University of Leicester student studying mechanical engineering off the back of it, which is, I'm sure, what they love to hear, because it's the entire championship is about getting students into STEM. So I would say I'm a success of that story. More importantly, I'm also doing the championship again this year. Hopefully we win. I'm sure you'll find out if we don't.
No, I'm sure you will win, John. You and Clive will carry on your good run of form, and yeah, we wish you all the best from Track Limits team.
Lovely, thank you guys.
Well, there you have it, people. That's John, our resident 3-time world champion.
Yeah, that's about right.
Do you put that on your Tinder profile?
No.
That should be up there.
That should
That should be up there, like 6 foot, 3-time world champion.
6 foot.
The reason why it's not on Tinder is because John's taken, for those of you listening in, so sorry.
But for those of you who don't know I have a girlfriend, yes, I'm on Tinder, find me.
Shade.
I'm assuming she doesn't listen to this podcast then, John?
She does not like motorsport, so definitely not.
Right, shall we move on?
Yes, I think we shall move on.
I think we're moving on to GT racing,
GT,
and there's
yes.
no other person we could possibly have here to talk about GT racing other than Daval.
This is the Daval special.
It is. He's been waiting in the wings
I have been
for this
waiting.
moment.
He's planned this for months.
Yes.
So what are we going to start with, Daval?
So we're going to start with the Daytona 24.
Daytona 24. Let's go for
I
it.
saw some of that.
Yes.
Slept through most of it.
It was an interesting race, I would say. One of the first biggest races of the year, kicking off the racing season.
How long is the GT season?
This was part of the IMSA series, so it's 10 races in this season. So they start off with Daytona. They actually have a championship within a championship. So they have the endurance championship within their main championship. So they have the shorter tracks which they go on, and they also have like the longer events, which is the Daytona 24, the Watkins Glen 6 hours, the
Silverstone 24?
nope.
Is that not on it?
No, it's
they
all
do
American tracks.
They do Sebring, don't they?
Yes, that's it. Sebring 12, and they round it off with
Laguna Seca, is that on there?
Petit Le Mans. Yeah, they do Laguna, but that's like one of the shorter events.
Petit Le Mans.
Yeah, it's like small Le Mans.
I understand. I've got conversational French down. Just never heard it before.
It's 10 hours or 1,000 miles, whichever comes first.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So about the Daytona 24, that's the one with the bank. So they share the track with the NASCAR and IndyCar, don't they?
Yes.
So they run part of the infield.
Yeah.
What happened?
What happened? First of all, it was a record-breaking race. They did 2 years ago. Actually, no, wait.
What are you trying to say?
I don't know.
So it's a record break. Why is it record break?
Okay, so they broke the amount of laps that they...
Number of laps.
Number of laps.
No, that's contested over the 24 hours.
Total number of laps, 808.
808 was the record, or is the record?
Is now the record.
Why does this say 833 here?
This says 833.
833 laps.
We can read.
We can't read.
I didn't see...
Let me zoom in.
Where is it?
There you
It
go.
was 808.
2 years ago, it was 808 laps. It's now 833.
Oh, it's up there. Okay.
Mm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's now 833 laps. 2 years ago, it was 808. And then they said, oh, this is
seamless.
Quite a difference.
Yeah. They said this is a record-breaking distance. This isn't going to be beaten. 2 years later, they beat it by well,
quick maths.
Quick maths, 20-something laps.
Why did it? How could you beat it by
That's a stint, isn't it?
Staggering distance?
It is.
That's an extra fuel stint, extra like half set of tyres.
Well, I think that is to do with the amount of green flag laps that they had.
Oh yeah, I went to bed at this point. What happened?
They just were. It was a shortened field, wasn't it? Daval?
It was about 38 cars. It was one of the lowest entries.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And that coupled with the fact it was beautiful weather.
Mm-hmm.
You know, not really many incidents as well.
Yeah.
I remember watching it with you and Josh, and it was more or less trouble free.
It was only about 5 cautions in the entire race,
and they weren't very long cautions as well, weren't they?
No, it was. I think it was total less than 2 hours of cautions, and the longest green flag running was 7 hours 43 minutes.
Yeah.
That's a lot of time.
That's a lot
on the track.
of
For it to be
time.
green 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine that.
Maybe like
the
localized
UKC.
yellow for local incidents, but
Oh right, okay.
overall it was absolute green flag
Yeah.
running.
At that
Nice.
point, surely a kangaroo must find their way on track again.
Headlines then.
Oh, it was won by the Cadillac team, wasn't it?
It was-
the number 10 WTR.
Yes, it was the Wayne Taylor Racing, another win by Wayne Taylor Racing Cadillac, which was in the hands of Kobayashi.
I'm coming for your record.
And so Kobayashi was one of the drivers in the field. He was, I think, for me, one of the best, the best performing driver in the race.
Yeah, he was. Didn't he get fastest lap as well in the DPI category?
I think he did.
Yeah.
Yes, and he made those amazing moves around the outside in the first corner. Going in the braking, he was brilliant, and then he just went for gaps that were open, which closed, opened again. He went through.
He went through. Did the classical dummy going into turn 1.
He did.
Yeah. And we also had the debut of the new C8 Corvette. Now that thing is sexy, isn't it?
It is very nice looking. They've gone away from their sort of front engine V8 to a mid-engine V8.
Yeah, they've kind of gone a bit bonkers Corvette, but
They've
pulled it off.
To plan necessarily, did it? The C8?
No, one of them had a cracked bell housing, which caused an oil leak, and this took 8 hours to repair.
Damn.
Maybe I'll just not really into the race.
327 laps behind the class leader.
Yeah.
But that's what I expect. You would expect that with with a new vehicle,
To be
new
fair,
layout and everything. That's what your first event is for.
you go through, you just get data, you find out where it's unreliable. Okay, yeah.
And to be fair, they did have a car on the lead lap,
Yeah,
so that's impressive.
the sister car finished 4th on the lead lap.
Nice.
So a pretty decent start for the new Corvette C8R.
Well, they needed a good start because let's think about it. A front engine car is never going to do well on a GT circuit.
Well, not anymore.
No.
Not anymore. Everyone's kind of going to that mid-engine or rear engine kind of
It's
setup.
just
This
so
changes
much-
the dynamic of it, doesn't it?
It's so much better for handling.
Mm.
But as well as the Corvette, there were GTDs on the grid as well. Tell us a bit about GTDs. as
So
well.
GTDs are basically just renamed European GT3 cars, and they have implemented them in the IMSA category, and they perform very well. It's very fun to watch.
There was a really interesting battle, wasn't it, in the GTD class?
Oh yes, it was the cracking Lambo versus Lambo battle. Lamborghini eventually won out of the top 2 or top 3 Lamborghinis that came. And it was top 2 Lamborghinis with Audi running off in the 3rd position. The WTR headed Audi. WTR very successful in European racing, especially Spa 24, multiple victories there. And it was the 3rd win for Lamborghini in the 24 Hours of Daytona. It was actually the 3rd win overall of any 24-hour win.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting fact. I honestly thought Lamborghini had more than that.
Yeah, the first ever 24-hour win was 2018 Daytona 24 Hours in the GTD class.
And Lamborghini have built some really, really amazing cars over the years. So
Murcielago GT1 at Spa 24.
Yes, that was an epic car.
They even entered it in the Le Mans 20, which wasn't very successful.
Not that year, but no, I mean, but fair play to Lambo for getting three times and 3 times lucky. So in the other GT class, the GTLM, these are similar to what we see in WEC,
Yes.
isn't it? Yeah.
So these are GTE cars essentially,
GTEs, yeah.
and it was comprised of the BMWs, the Porsches, and the Corvettes.
Corvettes,
Yeah, of course. The Corvette, new mid-engines.
Yes, still a V8, still a naturally aspirated V8. So, but no more thunder, which it's I'm kind of trying to get used to it. Obviously, I'm going to miss the thunder, but it's a screeching noise now. Also, the Porsche is it's the updated Evo version. So it's not got the straight pipes like it did last year. It comes out the side to save weight.
So it's a slightly different pitch as it's coming up.
It's still loud, but it's not as
ear piercing as it was. It's a bit deeper, isn't it?
It's not like the orchestra that I thought. Yeah. But yeah, it was BMW won after the hard-fought battles with the Porsches. The Porsches had them in the corners, but the BMW just flew them past on the straight. And
driving for BMW, Augusto Farfus, he pretty much was born in a BMW, wasn't he?
He's been driving. That's a great name. Can I just what a great name. Augusto Farfus.
He's been driving for BMW even during his world touring car days, and he's stuck with the team, and he's just really gelled quite well with that BMW. And I think they capitalized, wasn't it during a pit stop that they capitalized on the two 911s battling?
Yeah, so the 911s battling just took them out of contention because of poor tyre performance afterwards, and the BMW was better overall. Yep.
And then they just had the legs down the straight, didn't they?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Coming off the final corner, going into the bank before the first bus stop.
Oh yeah, the BMW was definitely over the line first, and then the Porsche was. If the race had ended there, they would have been less than a tenth they would have won by less than a tenth. Yeah. So it was very close over the line, but then because they were on the higher side of the bank, they couldn't outbrake the Porsche going to corner one.
Obviously, the interesting thing with often endurance racing and both GT racing as well is that it's not just one class of car racing around a track like you would go and watch a Formula 1 race, a Formula 2 race. You don't just have one class of car driving around. You've got multi-classes. You've got cars that are capable of far higher speeds than other cars that are still driving on that same track, which makes it a lot more dangerous, in my opinion. A lot more dangerous. But it also makes it a lot more dynamic. There's a lot going on. So obviously we're getting through quite a list of different types of car here, but we're moving on to the LMP2. So that's the class just below the Le Mans Prototype 1, which are the fastest cars we see at the Le Mans race. So LMP2.
Yeah, so LMP2, which basically stands for Le Mans Prototype 2, they are one step down from the European LMP1 cars, and they have about, I would think, 600 horsepower or so, turbocharged, and it was the number 81 of Dragon Speed, which was piloted by Henrik Hedman, Ben Hanley, Colin Brown, and Harrison Newey.
Harrison Newey. Where do we know that name from, Daval?
We know that from F1 because his
dad, isn't it?
Dad is Adrian Newey,
the technical aerodynamic guru at the Red Bull F1 team,
who also likes to dabble with a bit of motor racing. I've seen him driving he owns some of his own F1 cars, I believe.
I'm pretty sure
with the Leighton House, something like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Anyway.
So the second place went to PR1 Motorsport. However, they were leading for a long time, but they made a mistake because they accidentally hit the power reset button, which kind of and then they brushed the banking of the wall, and then they lost one of the two fuel pumps.
Ouch.
Yeah. And then
they were able to continue though, I guess.
Yeah, they were able to continue and then came home in second place. So I guess small mistakes cost everything.
Would that be in first if they didn't make that mistake?
Maybe.
Could have been.
Yeah.
You can never say definitively, can you?
Yeah. It was faultless up until then.
Where is the power reset button, do we know?
On the steering wheel somewhere, I would think.
My question is, who put it there?
No.
There you go. Anyway.
I imagine it's probably a massive big red button saying, do not press.
Yeah. Either that
That's
or
normally a button you put off out of reach, but within reach. Like, not on the immediate
somewhere so that you know where it is, but not that you're going to click it by accident.
Next to the ignition
For example,
point.
in the middle of the Daytona 24.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Maybe they've relocated it since.
And then the top spec cars.
The-
In this event, you've got DPI category.
Yes. So DPIs are the Daytona prototypes, which are like the more evolved version of the Daytona prototypes that were in the past of the Can-Am series, I think.
So we've got different manufacturers in, but they're quite different engine packages, aren't they?
Yes, they have different engine packages ranging from naturally aspirated V8s to only 2 litre turbocharged engines.
Yep. So it's quite different to lots of the other categories in GT racing and circuit racing, where you traditionally have V8s, V10s, or turbocharged V6s and stuff like that. To then be up against another prototype vehicle with a 4-cylinder turbo. Yes, boys, bringing it home for the JDM crowd out there. Woohoo! DPIs. So tell us a bit more about the DPI category. Obviously, we know the number
10.
Number 10.
It was the number 10 that took their third victory at Daytona, and of course it was piloted by Kamui Kobayashi, Ryan Briscoe, Scott Dixon, who took his 5th win, and Renger van der Zande. The number 10 led for most of the race, about 493 laps out of the 833. It was Kamui's 3rd win, Scott's 4th, my mistake, and Ryan Briscoe unfortunately picked up a penalty for running through the red light at pit exit, but they eventually got the lead back.
Is that why do you think did they start on pole?
No, they didn't.
No, they didn't.
No, they
Okay.
didn't.
It was the
didn't start on
Mazdas.
The Mazda started on pole.
Yes.
Wasn't it in second was Juan Pablo Montoya was in second.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was an interesting opening stint, and the number 10 was pretty much not even in the top 3 at all.
No.
And then they just eked away out, just chip away at the lead,
Was this
got the lead, and then just held it from there to the end. I mean, that was an incredible drive. Obviously, Kamui Kobayashi coming away with driver of the race, particularly for his moves under braking.
Yep.
So yeah, incredible. He's brought that exposure with him from his F1 days.
He's very underrated, isn't he, as a
He-
driver?
yeah,
Yeah.
he is. He's such a cool cat as well. He doesn't really say much. He's just very monotone behind the wheels, isn't he?
Definitely. Right then, I think that just about wraps up the Daytona 24. Let's move on.
We've got more GT racing.
We have got the Bathurst 12.
The Bathurst 12, legendary Mount Panorama.
I'd just like to interject here with a little question, and it's about Bathurst. Obviously, we've all driven it in various guises and various games.
Mm-hmm.
Never in real life, unfortunately, but
Not yet.
on the PlayStation.
Not yet.
Not
yes.
yet.
Or any other console that you may be able to buy. I just like to ask, where does it lie in your ranking of tracks, Dom? I know you're quite fond of Bathurst.
I quite like the Bathurst. It's a circuit that, even though you get a very good lap in, you know that still wasn't the lap.
I don't think anyone's ever had the
No.
lap.
I think very few people in history have ever had the lap. Daval can attest to that.
I've tried to drive it on.
But the not to cross you, Phil, but the thing that you don't get in the games is kangaroos.
No, kangaroos. Why are we talking about kangaroos?
Kangaroos. That was one of the biggest talking points in, especially the practice sessions, because kangaroos just came on track while people were practicing, and they luckily yellow flagged the session and they escorted the kangaroos off the track. But actually, at one point, the kangaroos were putting the only lap times or the only sector times on the track. So it would have been interesting to see how fast a kangaroo went around Mount Panorama.
Pretty rapid, I'd have thought,
It must be pretty
compared to a human.
If we look at their sector time, surely we can extrapolate the data and go, right, it's this percentage slower, and it'll be this sort of expected lap time.
I don't imagine that they got on there and thought, well, I've just crossed sector 1 line, I'm going to cane it to the next one now.
Well, do you think they're flat out through every corner?
They,
In the
well,
middle
they
section?
must be. I mean, to be getting air so often, I mean, you got to be hitting in apexes. In my head, that was a much better joke. Anyway, so practice. Despite the kangaroos, there was carnage, wasn't there?
There was a lot of cars going off, especially at the mountain, the Skyline Reed Park section of the circuit.
So is that the left-hander just before you come down the mount, isn't it?
Yes,
yeah.
yes.
There's not a lot of runoff there, isn't there?
No, it's road, curb,
wall.
So there's a small bit of sand.
There is sand trap,
And
the
then-
kitty litter, and then the wall.
And then the wall, yeah.
Well, tyre wall first.
And the other thing about that corner, the spectators are right. I mean, the grandstands and stuff.
It's raised up a
It is
bit.
raised. So
Yeah.
I mean, and there were some incidents where cars got air. I mean, thankfully they didn't go into the crowd. But I mean, that is
They didn't get far off.
not far
No,
off.
it
That
wasn't
that
far
is
off.
a that is a scary corner.
Yeah, there was a Lamborghini which went rear first into the wall, and it actually landed.
It landed on top,
of the
firewall.
banking.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Yeah.
it's
That's
crazy.
the one I was talking about. It's just if it had more momentum and didn't hit the top half of that small wall, it would have gone
It would have gone all the way in.
Yeah,
into the crowd.
hmm
But the Nissan, the number 35 Nissan, in
yes.
practice, wasn't it?
Yes.
They found the wall in a big way down at Ryde Park.
Yep. It ripped off the left rear wheel and other damage, which was deemed irreparable, causing it to be withdrawn.
So Nissan not getting off to a very good start.
Nope.
Bentley.
And this is in practice.
Yeah, this is
So-
just in practice.
In terms of the damage, and how does it work with the weekend of at the Bathurst 12? You have practice, qualifying, and then obviously the race. But in terms of time, what are we talking about here? Practice like on a Friday, for example?
Yes, I think they do practice on a Thursday or a Friday because I think it's on a Friday. Yeah, and then they do the Saturday of the qualifying and top 10 shootout.
And then it was the race usually sort of 12 o'clock to 12 or 2 to 2?
It starts at 5:45 a.m.
So it's practically sunrise.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
On the Sunday.
On
on
Sunday.
the it would be Sunday morning for them
For Sunday
in
morning.
Australia.
Interesting.
So imagine
So-
starting a GT, an endurance race, and it's dark, and you drive into the sun.
Into the
Yeah.
sun,
It
yeah.
is
Sun
what-
rising.
It's called as the golden hour
It
of
is.
driving in. It's so beautiful. Like when we do some 24-hour races ourselves in cars, but that little stint between about 6 a.m. and 10 a.m. you're both knackered, and as the sun comes up, the sky changes.
But that is motivation in itself. I mean, it's so picturesque just for the onboards.
Going back to this number 35 car then, I'm trying to get my head around the amount of damage that has to be done for a car in practice for it then to be withdrawn from the entire event. Would you say that's quite rare for that amount of damage to be done, or is it more?
I would have thought not. It's
No.
more probably a case of how many spare parts they bring with. Because
Yeah.
if you bring essentially a spare car in a box in components, you can repair anything. But if you have two incidents on the same suspension corner,
If you damage the chassis, then that's it.
the chassis can be a write-off.
And I'm pretty sure
But you might have
some of the rules carry over from, say, like in rallying and stuff like that, where chassis are sealed, engines are sealed, turbos are sealed. So
okay.
you can do a gearbox change, you can do changes on an engine, but you can't change the block, stuff like that.
So if you damage the actual block,
Yeah,
it's
so
done.
it limits you. I mean, it's they don't have millions of dollars in budget as F1 does. So that's the whole point of keeping as a cost cap. But I mean, I would imagine as well the short turnaround. I mean, yeah, it's over a weekend, but the short turnaround between Friday to Saturday to get the car running again, even if they don't make the qualifying shootout. So it is. I mean, that's a tough pill to swallow, to make it all the way to the Bathurst and not even make qualifying.
It was 5 cars in total that retired even before the race started, which was collectively from practice and qualifying, which we can get up to now, which was also fraught with problems. There was more trouble at the Skyline section of the track with one of the Mercedes. It got into the kitty litter, which kicked up a lot of dust, and there wasn't particularly good marshalling.
As I say here, this is poor marshalling.
Yes.
Could you define poor marshalling?
Poor marshalling.
For
What
us?
is poor marshal?
So there was a lot of dust kicked up where obviously visibility would be low.
So the marshals can't see.
Marshals can't see the cars coming.
More
can't see.
importantly, the drivers approaching at harem speeds.
Herring speeds, but there were no waving yellow flags.
There was no flags at all.
No flags. They were very delayed, and until the car made contact. In fact, one of the Silhouette Mark cars, Mustangs, it made contact due to they just went through the dust, kicked up, and it went practically T-boned the Mercedes on the front.
And
So
then they waved the yellow flag.
pretty much.
Slightly late
So-
on that one.
Which part of the track is this on?
This is on the top, the skyline part, so which is just below going down, just before going down into the dipper.
Okay, so it's still a little wide. It's not quite Monaco-esque with the walls right next to the track.
It's just on the top of that.
Yeah, it's
But-
where you brake for going down into the dipper.
Okay, so important braking zone. Everyone's pushing towards it. You've got a car stricken on the circuit.
Yep.
Or next to the circuit.
On the circuit,
On the
because
circuit.
on one part you have the kitty litter, the other part you have a wall, and then a massive drop off.
Would it have been able to continue under its own steam?
It was
So it was.
practically perpendicular to the racetrack.
So it's like putting a big rock in the middle of the track and going, right, drivers, have at it.
Yeah,
And then doing a bit of a smoke machine.
Oh, right, yes.
Yeah.
I forgot
So
about that.
if you hit the rock,
You
you should have been looking more.
I don't think the marshals could see the car was stricken through the dust. But
There's
if
dust,
the dust
wave the yellow
was
flag.
kicked up, then you should wave the yellow flag
Yeah.
anyway.
Not that people will be able to see it
Yeah.
through all the dust.
There
but
was actually
I'm not going to fault them on the yellow flag because you couldn't see. Like, if you had a yellow, you wouldn't see it.
the spectators were actually rushing towards the fence line, trying to slow the other drivers down.
In a scenario like that, I mean, it's Marshall's first responsibility to give warning, even if there's not necessarily warning going on. The moment the car leaves the track, you don't wait to see where it ends up. The first thing, it should be caution to everyone else.
And visibility itself is a hazard.
Mhm.
Low visibility is a hazard, which, in my opinion,
Warrants a yellow.
would warrant a yellow flag, regardless of whether there is a car to collect or not. Low visibility is an issue in itself.
I like to think if you're driving and you can't see where you're going, generally you know it's back
Lift.
off.
Yeah, but these are racing. They're not quite
These
normal,
are-
are they?
No.
In our racing, yeah, we back off. But in these guys flying around Mont
competitive,
Panorama,
yeah.
there's no such thing as lift for these guys.
Yeah, both cars were tied there and then,
But
practically.
another point about cars not even making a start, this is probably the first Bathurst that there's not been a Ferrari making the start.
Yes, another Ferrari.
None of them made the start.
No, there was only one Ferrari in the race, but that
That was in a different class, wasn't it?
it was in the GT3 class.
Oh, was it?
It was in top class, and it lost the back end once again at the top of the mountain, and
Just lost it.
just lost it. Oh no, where'd it go? It
It left the room.
left. It just the back end just got turned around and made heavy contact with the wall, and that's it.
That
It's
was
a number 27 as well. Was that Gilles' number? Is that Gilles' number? Gilles Villeneuve? Is he number 27?
27.
Villeneuve,
27.
I couldn't tell you. I don't know, honestly.
Anyway, the number 27 on the Ferrari is used to being flung around if it was on Villeneuve's car. Anyway,
And let's make a point about the Bentleys, though. I mean, they had a pretty tough time.
Yeah.
Some of you may not know this, but the Bentley GT3 cars are actually built by M Sport, based in Cumbria. And M Sport is known for the Ford World Rally cars in the World Rally Championship. So they use some of their resources to go out to Bathurst. Actually, Malcolm Wilson, former team principal, he was now handed over to Richard Milner. Malcolm Wilson was there himself, overseeing the proceedings to get the number 8 Bentley. Was it the number 8 Bentley
Yes.
that they got back on?
Yeah. It went into the wall sideways at the end. It had brake fade at the end of the chase, which is definitely where you not want brake fade.
No, that's the fastest part of the circuit.
You went
downhill.
straight on and into the tyre wall on the other side.
On the other side of that left hand, isn't
That's
it?
a long escape road though to go through and then hit the wall.
Yeah, it just didn't stop.
Nothing.
No, it just
You know,
went side on into the barrier, ripped the rear wing off. It took
Everything.
it was like trying to stop the car with toilet paper. Just
And you have to remember that the ground was bone dry due to the bushfires.
Yes.
Yeah, that's true. So yeah, there's basically no way of stopping the car once it left the road, pretty much. So yeah, M Sport boys, hats off to you guys for getting that Bentley back out on track.
Yep, it started from the pit lane.
Sorry from pit lane, yeah.
And lastly, one of the other huge contacts in qualifying, it was, well, we've all kind of done this in the video games where you're coming up to the the wall on your right hand side, and you just
kiss it.
Just
ever so,
kiss it.
The gentlest.
You slam into it to make it pitch the car around. For the corner.
Yeah, exactly. You use the
That
wall
is the
strats.
move. Use the barrier to get you round the corner.
Pin-
Just hug it
Pinball.
around the outside.
Typical Need for Speed Underground 2 driving.
Exactly.
I think you'll find it was Most Wanted actually.
Almost wanted. Yeah. But yeah.
It made the contact with the wall, but it was nearly overturned. It was huge damage, and once again another retirement.
So,
Huge.
pole position. What was the time, Daval?
I can't see.
Was it 2:03?
203.555.
Tell him what it was because he can't read.
Here it is, Daval. I've highlighted it.
There
for
it
you.
is.
Read it out for us.
20 qualifying time, or the pole position time, I should say, was 203.555, which isn't the fastest time around the mountain, or for a tin top anyway. It's a 202.1, I believe.
That's a big difference between the two times. Weren't drivers complaining that the surface itself was quite dusty this year?
Oh yeah.
I'm not surprised with what's been going on in
There was
Australia.
actually
It just didn't have the pace in it this year, didn't it?
There was actually a danger of being a dust storm in the last 4 hours into the race.
That's been an interesting condition to try and drive.
It was
in,
very windy.
because it's one thing to drive in the wet, but dust, it's like dry, but you don't anticipate it to lose grip as much.
You don't see it.
You don't see
It's
it,
not glistening like it is
Doesn't
when it's
change
raining.
the colour of the tarmac so much.
Right. What happened in the race then?
So, what happened in the race? It was the McLaren, Mercedes, and Nissan which made the biggest moves in the opening stages. The Bentley made up a ton of the number 7 Bentley, which actually started from pit lane, not the number 8. It's easy to get those two mixed up. They made so many places from starting from the pit lane. It was unbelievable.
They got up to. They were just shy of the top 15 by the end of the first stint, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was amazing from them. The move of the race, in my opinion, was that opening move coming onto the start finish straight. Was it by the McLaren getting the jump from was it third?
Yep.
Getting the jump into the lead and just walking away with it in the opening stints.
Yeah.
That was crazy.
Yeah, there were there were a few commanding stints from a couple of drivers and a couple of cars that really sort of hammered them into place. The first safety car, however, it came from the form of a Aston Martin. It just crashed into the dipper, getting it wrong, made contact with the wall, bounced off into the other wall, and that was it.
And that was it.
Yeah.
The 911s have won multiple times in the past, but this year they started with a different strategy, didn't they? They're known for being more fuel efficient on their stints because of their. I'm not sure if it's because of their layout, they're easier on tires or what, but I mean, whatever Porsche have done to that GT3 car, it just works on the mount. But it didn't work for them this year, didn't it?
No, they were definitely fuel saving. They ran 38 lap stints.
38 laps on a
compared to everybody else, which is
like 32, wasn't it?
Yes. Somewhere between 30 and 33 laps was everybody else. So they ran about 5 to 7 laps longer.
Talk us through the approach to stints in this, because I'm pretty sure they've changed the rule for this year that stints, a driver cannot spend more than X amount of time in the car in any one go, isn't it? They've shortened that amount of time. It's now down to 150 minutes.
Yes, it was a bit longer before, and now it's
It was half an hour longer before, wasn't it?
Yeah.
180 minutes. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's just a new thing for strategists to try and come up with and see, just juggle on the driver times on which drivers can drive which sections of the race, which one do you want in when. Yep. And trying not to overrun their times as well.
Another thing to note for those of you listening, the 150 minute driver stints makes it confusing for laps. So if a typical stint is around 34 laps and you're doing double stints, that usually ends up putting you over 150 minutes. So it means you end up having to come in halfway through a stint either to do a driver change or to do a tyre or a fuel stop. So it makes it a lot harder for the teams trying to make up the distance who are not as good on fuel but trying to go the extra way and still trying to save their drivers for later. Some of the teams are doing basically quick stints, so one stint per driver until the end stages, and some of the teams are getting their double stints out of the way early, and having their stronger driver finish on single stints near the end of the race. So the whole approach or philosophy from a team perspective is really interesting to watch, specifically at the Bathurst 12.
Supposedly that would mean the Porsche team running their long stints would have to do driver changes a lot more often, because one stint would last you roughly anywhere from 75 to 85 minutes. And so 2 stints would take you over that 150 minute threshold.
And that's not factoring in yellow flags or full course yellows. And there was a full course yellow in the Bathurst that was over half an hour.
The longest one was about 30 minutes.
And it pretty much lasted in laps, it was just over a quarter of a stint in laps. So that completely threw all the strategies all haywire for this race. So it was interesting to watch.
They had so there were also other incidents. Unfortunately, Audi was not their race this year. The Valvoline Audis, the number 2 and the number 22 car, they were following each other, who was also trying to overtake the a car in front. I think it was the Mercedes. However, with the number 2 car, this is once again at the Skyline part of the section, it ran a bit wide. So the number 22 behind tried to capitalize on that and tried to go on the inside, but then lost his back end, and it kind of counter steer, but then it pitched right in front of the sister car and went hard into the wall where everybody else had been going off before, and that was once again a complete write-off. It was a huge impact, and once again, if it had impacted in the right angle, it would have gone over the banking.
Well, from the onboard, it looked very violent. You couldn't really tell because of all the sand, but it stopped very quickly on impact. So another testament again to the safety involved in these motorsport vehicles.
The number 2 car had rev sensor issues, which kind of put them on the back foot, and the number 222 had tyre rub, which caused 2 right rear punctures.
They're not helping you here with their numbering.
No. But that was really bizarre. I remember watching it with you that night. They had what seemed to be a puncture. And they only changed that corner wheel. Sent the car back out, and something was rubbing on the tyre. So they figured, okay, well, we don't want to bring it back in, and they just left it to continue rubbing down until it cleared. Now, I would not expect that from a professional team such as Valvoline Audi. I think that was very, very, we would do something like that, right? That was quite
amateur,
very amateur.
Just getting vibes of you driving around with the knackered clutch last year. It'll be fine.
It'll be fine. It'll be good.
I'll just stop it on the brakes.
And the thing is, they had to come in more than once to try and fix it, and it ended up being some part of the diffuser or the floor or something. No, it wasn't the floor. It was suspension damage that was rubbing on the tyre.
The amount of time you could spend trying to nurse a car back to the pit lane if you get a puncture in the wrong section of the track, surely is a lot longer than you'd lose from fixing it in the first place.
Imagine if it turn 1.
Happens at
you can't just turn around and drive back up the pit lane. You've got
4 or 5 minutes of nursing it down towards
the track.
Not only
that, it's
dangerous.
Clockwise? No, it's an anti-clockwise circuit, and it was the rear right tyre that had this fault.
That's the important loaded tyre.
So if
it is the loaded
tyre. So imagine on a flip side, on an unloaded corner, imagine the fast right-hander, the typical drain cam, that one. Imagine having a tyre fail there, pitching you right, and then tank slap a left, and you have the same scenario that happened to the Bentleys in qualifying.
Risky.
You're risking your drivers out there just to save some time in the pit lane. It's I think that was a bad judgment call by Valvoline Audi.
I suppose it depends which part it was rubbing on, because if it's rubbing on the actual rubber tyre, then you want to
it was rubbing on the tyre.
It was.
Okay.
There was a shot of the carcass, and it was the outer edge that was like just peeled off really, and wasn't the tread only about 2 millimeters thick.
Yeah.
Also, yeah.
Yeah,
So you have
there was
fast
canvas showing pretty much. You don't want that. You don't want to have canvas showing on a
It's
GT
fine,
car.
just slap it on the other corner and last another stint. Okay, so that's a problem.
Yes. Yeah.
But the Mercedes, they brought out a new variant of their AMG GT car, didn't they? Daval?
Yes,
Yes.
they do.
They did. They have. Yeah, it's a lot more angrier version. I
More
would think.
angrier. Whoa.
It looks like it's going to eat you if
Yes.
it comes up behind.
It's very aggressive. It's got a massive front grille. It's got very angry looking sort of headlight eyes.
Quick question: do you like it?
I do.
Opposed to the old.
I do like it.
Compared to the generation before, yes,
Yes.
leaps and bounds.
Better.
The SLS. The MG is better than the SLS. I would think.
Phil, opinions?
The
new Mercedes.
Well, given that I've not seen a picture of it, John, I'll go with it's all right.
Yeah. It's not open cockpit because Phil is an F1 freak. That's where his allegiance is.
I can sit. I appreciate racing in all forms. I appreciate watching but for me,
If someone was to give it to you as a present, would you be happy or sad?
I drive it certainly. The thing with me is I'm quite a simple man, and I can sort of fill my brain with one thing, and at the moment that's Formula One. Everything else is kind of surplus to requirement for the moment. I'm quite happy with Formula One. If I ever change my mind and I go on to GT racing, Daval, I'll be in touch and we can talk about it, and I'll tell you what the Mercedes is like. But,
Excellent.
I mean, if someone showed me a picture, I could tell you if I liked it. So we're rapidly hunting through Instagram to find a picture.
Rapidly. No, I
What
can only,
colour is it?
There's a
Varies depending on your own set.
multitude of colours. I can't find one.
You
at
can
the
have it
moment.
in whatever colour you want.
So that was that.
So what's new about it? Why is it?
What's new? It's just so every 3 years the GT teams are allowed to bring out an aero package or an updated aero package.
3 years.
Every 3
For
years.
3 years.
Wow.
I suppose that slows down.
So once you bring out a dog of a car,
Mhm.
you're stuck with it for 3 years.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, and then you
Haas
can
should not be in GT racing.
update it.
And another thing, Daval, that I think you should mention to the fans listening is, isn't there something to do with that version GT car running in that series has to be, it's not the current one in the European Championships, isn't it? It's a car that's about a year old.
Yeah, so the in the Bathurst race, the chassis have to be at least 1 year old, but because this new AMG
year.
was actually released last year.
Last year they were able to.
They
run
are
this
able
year
to, yeah.
in this GT series.
Yes.
So they've played the cards very well,
Yeah.
Mercedes. But yeah, it's the look of Phil. Phil is.
Yeah, Phil is
just-
now looking at it.
I'm studying it with all of my power.
All of your power.
It's a nice looking car. I do like yellow and green. They're my favourite colours. The grille looks mean. The front of that car looks like it means business.
It does. It does.
Can't see the back.
It's,
I'm sure
it's the
nice.
same.
I'm sure it's nice.
Yeah.
No, I like that.
Yeah.
Good car.
It's got Phil stamp of
I
approval.
think it's one of the properly balanced or the most properly balanced GT3 cars. That's why so many teams run them.
Well, you take a good car and then you develop it a little bit and you make it a great car.
Exactly.
It wasn't exactly a bad platform to start with.
No.
Definitely. Not.
But you'd never. I mean, looks can be deceiving because when you look at it, you think, my God, that's a long front end.
Yeah. I can see that. That's the sort of car you buy if you're making up for something.
If you're making up for something. Yeah.
Anyway,
Back to topic. A couple of things about the pit stops. We've got some notes here about some things, some developments that happened. During the pit stop, you have to switch the engine off, isn't that?
Yes.
Isn't that right, Daval?
You have to switch the engine. That is one of the regulations due to safety. Because imagine if you're refueling and then the fuel just trickles down, or if there's there's an engine fire.
Or turbo fires for
Yeah,
some of the forced induction cars.
More and more GT3 cars are actually going to turbos now, or making a transition to turbos.
Yeah.
I should say the Ferraris, the 458, which used to have an amazing voice, they are now turbocharged.
Yeah, no turbocharged.
The Bentleys are turbocharged, the Nissans are too. So you have all these different. You have like in total about 11 odd, not in this particular race, but you have 11 different
Over
manufacturers.
season,
For 11 different 11. That's 11 different body shapes. That's 11 different configurations of drivetrain, engine, 11 different aerodynamics, and it just sort of works most of the time.
yeah. It's interesting to see them fighting so close.
Yeah.
But about the switching engines off in pit lane, didn't one of the McLarens get caught out by that?
It was the McLarens, or I think it was one of the Mercedes.
Mercedes.
Yes.
Yeah, they got wasn't it Marciello?
Yes, it was
penalty.
Raffaele Marciello, one of the big guns in Mercedes factory teams. He copped a penalty for that.
Did you forget?
Yeah.
Did you just forget?
Yeah, just forgot. I think
In
it was in the closing stages of the race.
In the heat of the moment, there's a lot to do.
They
Yeah,
had
no,
to.
I completely agree.
They actually had a puncture, which was an unscheduled pit stop.
Ah, okay.
Yeah.
Another thing about these cars, these GT3 cars, they don't actually have a clutch. So on their restart procedure in the pit lane, they have to start with it in gear at the right time. Well, it's already come off the jacks, but they have to start with it in gear, and they have a particular start sequence, which basically works like an auto clutch to get it going in the pit lane.
Drives the car on almost.
So yeah, there's a lot to think about when you've just jumped in a car you've not driven since the day before, and have to pedal this thing around a circuit for an hour and a half. It's crazy.
It was the number 8 Bentley, which was leading halfway, and it was just going back and forth from the Mercedes and the McLaren and the Porsche, and I would think the Nissan. I think that was an underdog in this race.
It was.
It was the biggest overtake. It overtook so many cars on the straights. That was where its strength was, from all that induction power. But its sort of big lumbering Godzilla monstrousness was it kind of played a hindrance on the twisty mountain section.
Particularly coming down coming down the mountain. The amount of torque that thing has, it just reels them in on the straight and also going up the mountain. So yeah. And that was an older, that wasn't a current.
It was the latest.
It's the latest iteration, right. But yeah, another race distance record this time, 314 laps.
We had 314 laps, which is another distance record. Yes, as
1,950 kilometers, as you told me earlier.
Yes, that.
So it was very, very interesting. Where do they head off to next after this?
Next is the Laguna Seca 8 hours.
And when is it?
It's in March.
Not long.
Not long.
Not long. We've been quite slow with getting this one out, haven't we?
8 hours.
Yes, we have.
It was
We're a bit late.
Yeah, 8 hours.
Next week.
We've been busy trying to cover some F1 content for you guys listening out there with the hype with all the cars and the F1 testing.
And that.
But we needed to do this special because not many people are quite in tune with GT racing, and once you start watching it draws you in because it's really, really close.
It's certainly, I'd call myself an outsider on GT racing. The races I've watched with you guys, I watched the Bathurst 12 a year and a bit ago.
Yep.
And I didn't really have any background information to go on, but it was a very enjoyable race to watch. There's a lot going on.
There's so much stuff going on.
There is. It's a really good. If you're a fan of racing,
if you want to see pure racing,
then watch GT racing. It's fantastic.
It's a series I've been trying to get into this year, I think.
Yeah.
Just trying to expand from F1 into other championships.
If you want another GT category to get into, and Daval is an expert in this, is it the Japanese
Super GT?
Super GT, yes.
So where Jensen Button was racing.
Yeah,
He was.
he drove
The
for Honda.
YouTuber.
No, not Steven Alvarez. The Super GT, as in the Japanese Super GT championship, which is sponsored by Autobacks, which is their basic version of Halfords. Yeah, it is.
It's the Japanese version of the British GT.
Yes,
Similar.
it's Japanese. It's Japan's top motor racing top tier.
Category for door cars.
Yeah.
Okay, so what tracks do they go to?
They go to a variety of tracks: Fuji, Suzuka.
I know them.
They also go to Thailand. They also go to Autopolis, and other tracks which I can't remember at the moment.
So
we
I
can
probably don't know
put them
anyway.
in on the video.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, they do. So a lot of those are actually on a lot of the Gran Turismo games.
Yes.
Oh.
So that's where a lot of the if you play Gran Turismo from back in Gran Turismo 2 coming forward, you see a lot of the JGTC description. That's what they are actually from. They're actually real cars. They're not fictitious.
Oh.
Yeah. They are from the old Japanese Grand Touring Championship.
Nice.
That's where they're from.
With the classic Pennzoil Nissan GTR, which is
Probably Daval's favorite car.
still Nissan still holds the most title wins of Super GT.
Yeah.
Wow.
And that was with the old R34 shape.
R34
That-
and
that
R33
And
and
R33 as well.
the R32, the Calsonic days of the original Godzilla goes
Yeah.
back to the mid 90s.
So
We
you got-
could sit here and talk for days about. Well, I mean, I couldn't. I'm very limited, but I think that those of you with knowledge about GT racing could sit here for genuinely days and discuss the number of different classes, races, series, cars, championships, and everything. And it's a real amazing series to get into if you're into pure racing.
Yep.
It
So
is.
So,
give it a watch.
yeah.
Give it a watch. JGTC and anything GT related.
Yep.
Deval highly recommends it.
Yeah. So I guess to just round off the Bathurst 12 hour, it was Bentley that won. The number 8 Bentley eventually won, and the rain actually came as soon as they crossed the line, which was the lucky escape.
Very picturesque, wasn't it?
And they had record-breaking spectators, and they raised a lot of money for the Australian bushfires that were happening at the time.
That's good. Nice note to end that on.
Nice not to end it. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. That is the GT Daval special. I think it's fitting to call it that, given it's his birthday. So, hope you guys enjoyed it, and stay tuned next time for some F1 testing recap. Over now.
Toodaloo.
Bye.